Hello and welcome to Atomic Lizards. We're a trio of friends podcasting about the Godzilla franchise and other films we love. I'm Miranda, the film fanatic.
I'm Udi, the de facto film expert.
And I'm Dan, the kaiju extraordinaire.
On today's episode, we are talking about our favorite media from 2024. This episode will have spoilers, so please go watch all these great films and shows and media if you haven't yet. I'll go first. So my top 5, which are technically in no order, but I think I determined this order to be pretty accurate to it. It might change later on. Who's to say? But my top 5 movies and media of 2024 are Dropouts, Actual Play, Tabletop, Role-Playing Game Show, Dimension 20, Misfits and Magic 2. My second pick is Alien Romulus. My third is Daniel Howell's We're All Doomed special. Number 4 is Turtles All the Way Down. Number 5 is The Fall Guy. My honorable mentions are I Saw the TV Glow, which is a great film. I really liked it, and I know it resonated with a lot of people out there. I love the neon lights, and it's really a good watch. Hank Green's Pissing Out Cancer comedy special, also really good. I mean, it's a stand-up type special, so it's not really like a TV show or anything, but I think Hank Green did a great job at like his first-ish attempt at stand-up. I really enjoyed it. Obviously, I gotta mention Sonic 3. It's got neon lights and puns, and I love it. Venom 3 as well. It's silly, it's ridiculous, and I also love it. And then Twisters as well. I'm going to mention that because it's way better than I thought it was going to be, and I was just pleasantly surprised. This one's not a TV show or a movie or a special, but actually a live show. It's called The Terrible Influence Tour by Daniel Howell and Phil Lester. I saw them in 2024, and it was a great time. I wanted to mention it because it was like something I was really looking forward to in 2024. Obviously, I gotta mention Godzilla X Kong: A New Empire. Neon lights and synthwave soundtracks are my jam. And then I spent a lot of time watching Dimension 20 in 2024. So I have to shout out Fantasy High Junior Year and Never Stop Blowing Up. So I will turn the mic over to Udi. What are your top films of 2024?
Thank you for passing the mic. My top 5 movies of 2024 are Dune Part 2, directed by Denis Villeneuve, and that's a Warner Bros. Film. Number 2 is Anora, directed by Sean Baker, and that's a Neon film. Number 3 is Civil War, directed by Alex Garland, and that's an A24 film. Number 4, Robot Dreams, directed by Pablo Berger, and that's a Neon film. And then number 5, Nosferatu, squeaking in at the last second, directed by Robert Eggers, and that's a Focus Features / Universal film. My honorable mentions of the year are The Substance, directed by Coralie Farja. I don't know if that's correct, but it's French, and I didn't look it up, so that's my own fault. Kinds of Kindness, directed by Yorgos Lanthimos. Strange Darling, directed by J.T. Molnar. Smile 2, directed by Parker Finn. The Bike Riders, directed by Jeff Nichols. The Wild Robot, directed by Chris Sanders. Flow, directed by Gintz Zilbalodis. Again, didn't look it up, my bad. And Furiosa, directed by George Miller. I'm going to mention this next movie because there's a high chance that when I finally get to see it, I would probably put it somewhere in my either top 10 or an honorable mention list, but because A24 botched the freaking release, I wasn't able to see it. But Sing from last year is supposed to be really, really good. So I'm sure that when I eventually, hopefully soon, end up seeing that, that will end up somewhere high in my list of the year. But yeah, just to quickly go through my honorable mentions really quick. The Substance was just mind-blowing. Just one of the most grotesque and insane movies I've seen in quite some time. But it's like so well done that like I wasn't in a rush to like watch it soon after watching it for the first time, but I couldn't stop thinking about it for like a while after, and it's just really well done. I think from top to bottom, like everyone was perfectly cast and like every aspect of it was great, and it was disgusting and horrible, but also like kind of hilarious at certain points and stuff like that. So that just made the whole experience just no, unforgettable basically from top to bottom. Kinds of Kindness is a lot of fun. I didn't know anything about it going in, but I was obsessed with the trailer. Also, shout out to the song "Brand New Bitch" by Cobra that was played in the trailer and played in the movie as well. Because that I couldn't get that song out of my head for like the whole year. So shout out that song and shout out to Kinds of Kindness for having that song in the trailer. Strange Darling was a surprise hit that kind of came out of nowhere. I wasn't really expecting it. I just saw that this actor, Willa Fitzgerald, who I was a fan of from the Scream TV show on MTV back in the day, was in it. And also Kyle Gallner, who I've been enjoying a lot more, who's been kind of popping up in a lot more horror movies and stuff like that. So I was looking forward to it, and then thankfully I was able to catch it in theaters. And man, just what a great movie! It's one of those where it's like it's very simple, but it's just more the execution of how it's telling the story that it's telling is done that just elevates it and just makes it so good. And also on like a crazy like random thing, it's a gorgeous film, and the cinematographer for the film is Giovanni Ribisi. And if that name doesn't ring any bells, he is an actor who's been in the business for a while, and he was like the CEO of like the big, I forgot the name of it, but like the big human corporation from the Avatar movies. He was in Gone in 60 Seconds. He was in Saving Private Ryan. So I'm sure like you've seen him around, but like this is his first movie as a cinematographer, and he did a phenomenal job. Really, really good. Smile 2, I became Smile pilled this year. I had avoided the first one when it first came out because I thought it looked really bad and generic and lame. And then like when the reviews came out for the first one, I was shocked that it was getting good reviews. I was like, what? There's no way. Finally watched it this year, and I was like, God dang it, I was wrong. Oh well, I'm so glad I watched it. Really liked it. Second one, I was super excited for, and man, paid off because I really liked the second one. And then the last few that I mentioned at the end, Bike Rider is really good. Cool that it was like a Midwest story. The Wild Robot, just phenomenally well done. Gorgeous animation, beautiful story. We talked about it on the podcast. Go look it up. Flow, very similar to The Wild Robot, but like not to put it this way, but it's kind of like The Wild Robot, but for like adults, kind of. Not that The Wild Robots isn't also for adults, but Flow is just there's no dialogue, and it's just all visual storytelling, which is really cool, but it's really gorgeous and really well done. And then Furiosa, gotta shout out Furiosa because freaking no one went to go see it in theaters, and it's such a shame because it was such a cool film, especially in the Dolby Theater. Wow, just a freaking phenomenal experience. But all right, I'll pass it on to you now, Dan. What are your top 5 films and beyond of 2024?
All right. Well, I guess I'll go next with my favorites of the year. But before I get into my top five, I do want to start off with my honorable mentions, and those films are in no particular order. Monkey Man, lots of good action. It's essentially a superhero movie if you really think about it. So I had a lot of fun with that. Dave Patel is great. Or I think I mispronounced his name. Is it Dev Patel? Yeah, Dev Patel, not Dave Patel. But Dev Patel is great in it. If you're a big fan of action, you know, you like John Wick and all that, I'd recommend Monkey Man. The Fall Guy, another great Ryan Gosling movie. And then Emily Blunt's also great in it. It's really funny. It was definitely a surprise for me for the year. Really enjoyed it. Alien Romulus, very solid alien movie. It delivers on the scares. It has an interesting concept. It has good acting. Heck, we made a review on it. Go check out our review. Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire. You know, I'm biased when it comes to Godzilla. I mean, Godzilla is the reason why this podcast exists. So, of course, I'm gonna give that an honorable mention because, well, it's a new Godzilla movie. You know, the MonsterVerse is still going strong. It's nice to see the MonsterVerse continue. And while it wasn't as good as maybe say like Godzilla minus one, I know all the Godzilla fan base is groaning because I compared it to Godzilla minus one because everyone's comparing this to Godzilla minus one. But I still think that this movie stands on its own. It doesn't need to be compared. Just because it's not as good as some of the other movies in the franchise doesn't mean it still can't be appreciated. Godzilla X Kong's a lot of fun. If you want a good, entertaining movie, go check out The New Empire. Civil War was really good. It had an interesting message, and I liked the way that it was shot. A very interesting story. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, another kind of biased pick because I love the Planet of the Apes franchise, and I'm just so happy to see these movies continue. And I really did enjoy the newest entry in the series. And then, of course, Sonic 3. which was a nice surprise for me because I wasn't expecting to really like Sonic 3, so I was really happy that I did end up liking it. But all right, here are my top 5, and I'm just going to list them off for now. I'll go into detail about what I really thought about these movies later in the discussion. But for now, at number 5, we have The Wild Robot. At number 4, we got Furiosa. At number 3, I have Strange Darling. At number 2, I have Flow. And then at number 1, give it up for Madam Web. Madam Web was without a doubt the best movie to come out in 2024. None of the other movies I listed this year even come close to being as good as Madam Web. Am I right, Udi?
Oh man, that's
Yeah.
crazy. I almost had
Yeah.
that as my number one, but
I know,
I
right?
had to really. It was up there for sure.
Yeah. So if you have not, like, Madam Web was so good, Udi forgot to put it in his honorable mentions. That's how good it was. So
Denis Villeneuve, who?
yeah. So
Y'all
if
are
you
so funny.
hold on,
So funny.
I'm not done yet though. I'm not done. If you have not seen Madam Web, please do yourself a favor and do not watch it because I'm just messing around. If you couldn't tell. So,
I might give
Madam,
it a watch this year because I haven't seen it yet.
yeah, well, you might like it, Miranda. Who knows? So,
I mean, I feel like if it's in the Venom realm, there's a high likelihood.
yeah. But yeah, no. Madam Web was one of 2024's worst movies. Now, my actual number one, unsurprisingly, was Dune Part 2. Do yourself a favor and watch that if you haven't seen it.
We definitely all have different lists, and I'm super excited to dive into why you guys picked your top 5, and I'm super excited to share why I picked my top 5. So let's jump into it. Let's start the discussion off with our number 5 pick. Mine was The Fall Guy. Udi had Nosferatu, and Dan had The Wild Robot. So who wants to go first?
I don't mind giving more insight into my number 5. Also, don't mind going first because once again, we already did a review of The Wild Robot, so I'm going to keep it brief because we have an entire episode for this. The Wild Robot, this movie was one of DreamWorks' best. There's the animation, the writing, the characters, the music, all were beautifully well executed to make this the perfect blend of animated goodness. It's definitely one of my favorite animated movies to come out this decade so far. And if you're a fan of animation or you need something to watch with the kids, give The Wild Robot a shot. But yeah, Wild Robot, one of my favorites of this year, definitely deserves its spot in number 5 for me personally.
I definitely see how Wild Robot got into your list. I was also going to mention it or put it somewhere on the list, but I knew that you were going to probably put it on your list, so I was like, let's pick a different movie to like shout out. But The Wild Robot is a beautifully well-made movie. It's gorgeous. I loved the animation. And of course, just go listen to our episode. It's like an hour and a half long, and you can hear all our thoughts, but it definitely deserves to be in like the top movies of 2024.
Yeah, genuinely, it's just one of the best animated movies in a while, and that I mean to like hype it up or build it up to an extent, but it's gonna be disappointing. But it's just so beautifully done. Really, it's a beautiful story about humanity and not even necessarily humanity, I guess, but like the human spirit and motherhood, and also the trials and tribulations of motherhood. And it's also about climate change and so many different things, and all the voice performances are really great, and just the animation is just so gorgeous. If you have the ability to get the 4K disc, and especially if you have the ability to play it on the TV with Dolby Vision, would highly recommend. It's so good looking on a Dolby Vision screen. So definitely recommend it, and definitely don't sleep on it because it's very good. I will go next with my number 5, which is Nosferatu, directed by Robert Eggers again. This just came out at the very end of December, and I've been looking forward to this one for a long time because it was announced a while ago, like several years ago, I think now. But it's been kind of a long road. I think we've known that Robert Eggers is going to do this since before I think he did the last movie he did, which was The Northman. I'm pretty sure at least. So it's been several years. There was kind of things up in the air on whether or not it was going to happen. A lot of people didn't think it was actually going to work out, but somehow, thankfully, worked out, and we're all the better for it because I will say that I haven't watched any of the other Nosferatu films. I was going to watch the original, and then I also wanted to watch Vampire, and then I also wanted to watch the Werner Herzog version that he did. But once it got closer, I didn't quite feel in the headspace to, watch a bunch of movies just to watch it. And then I also came to the conclusion that I just wanted to watch it, with a blank slate. I was like, well, if I haven't watched any of these yet, why do it now? I might as well watch the new one with, brand new eyes, enjoy it for what it is, and then I can go back and watch either one. So that's what I'm still planning on doing. Haven't done it yet, but yeah, really, really love this one. I think Gothic horror is done best by Robert Eggers. He just, not necessarily even just Gothic, just like old timey horror. He does folk horror, he does Gothic horror, um, mythical horror. Like he has such a good grasp on like old time horror that I think no one else can like even hold a candle to. He just masters the time period that the story is set in and just makes you feel like you're there. And he's so good at building tension and suspense. And like I wasn't expecting to go into this thinking that it was going to be creepy at all, and it was kind of creepy. I'm not gonna lie. I don't think it was scary, but it was definitely creepy. And just like the vibe, like he just every creative decision he makes just pulls you in and like keeps you right there. And it's just so well done. Like the sound design is incredible, the cinematography, all the performances. Like I know a lot of people were upset that I'm pretty sure Anya Taylor-Joy was supposed to be the lead, but then she ended up being unable to do it. So then they ended up getting Lily Depp Rose, who people were like upset by. But honestly, she freaking nailed it. She just home run for her, and just the whole film was just so 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 well done. I don't know necessarily that it was like my favorite like horror film of the year technically, like in the sense of like I loved it, and technically speaking it's phenomenal, and it just as a film itself is phenomenal. As far as like horror movies go, I mean, I mentioned some on my honorable mentions. Like technically, The Substance would be like, well, not technically, that is body horror. Smile 2 is definitely horror, and then I guess like the first Omen was also really well done, and then Dan and Miranda already mentioned Alien Romulus, which all of those fantastic. If you're looking for horror movies of the year to check out, definitely look those up. But I just think that this one, just as a movie, like you don't have to necessarily be into horror to go and watch this movie. I would think you would probably want to be because it is, like I said, a little creepy, but it's just a great movie. So yeah, that's my number five.
Yeah, I unfortunately did not get to see Nosferatu before recording this episode, but I've been hearing nothing but great things about it. I am interested to watch it. As I've told everyone on the podcast before, I don't like horror movies. I don't do good with horror movies, so I've been kind of iffy about it because I don't know if I'd find it too spooky. But I think I'm gonna try and check it out. Like, if I have the lights on, I'm watching in my room, it won't be so bad. So I've just been hearing way too many good things about this movie to just want to sleep on it. So I do want to check it out. And yeah, I did hear that Lily Rose Depp does a fantastic performance, so I'm curious to see what her performance is like as well.
I also did not see Nosferatu. I just didn't get to theaters to see it, and then I did learn some stuff about the movie that I was like, that makes me feel uncomfortable. I was like, I'll sit it out. I will watch Sonic 3 is the last movie of 2024. When it comes to like streaming, I might check it out, but I have heard good things, and I'm glad that you enjoyed it, Udi. I know that the original from like the 20s, or maybe it's earlier than that. It's like a silent film. So I would be interested in seeing and comparing and contrasting like how is old school filmmaking compared to this modern filmmaking, because I assume they're talking in this movie. And just like what is their take on like the vampire of it. And the only thing I do technically know about Nosferatu, well actually I don't even know anything about him. I guess that's not even technically his name. The point is, what I'm getting to is I just know the hash slinging slasher episode of SpongeBob where they're like, Nosferatu. and then that there's hyenas in the original. But yeah, I can totally see why this is on your list. It makes total sense. And like I said, I'm glad you liked it.
Just before we move on, it's funny that you mentioned that because in the press tour for this film, they actually brought that up, and I'm pretty sure the director like literally thanked SpongeBob for introducing a whole new generation of people to Nosferatu.
Oh, definitely. He
Yeah,
definitely did.
I was gonna say, definitely, yeah, that SpongeBob episode. Everyone knows Nosferatu from that for sure.
Yeah. Because like growing up, I knew who Nosferatu was just because of SpongeBob. I had no
Yeah.
idea otherwise. So that's really funny. And then I guess one last thing also. Shout out to Bill Skarsgård. I'm not gonna name who he plays in the film just to not like give it away, I guess, but transformative. My God, like such a phenomenal performance. That's all I'm gonna say. All I'm gonna say, but really, really good.
I guess it's my turn. I picked The Fall Guy for my number 5 spot. I was debating between The Fall Guy and Twisters. I was like, I don't know. So, but I went with The Fall Guy because it's just a little fun action movie. It's silly. It's got Ryan Gosling in it, which was a person that I didn't particularly care for until Barbie came out, and I was like, oh, this guy is kind of funny. So it was nice to see like that different side of his acting. And then when I watched The Fall Guy, I was like, oh, this is about stunt people and like a film, and there's like this mystery thing, and it's based off of an old TV show which I've never seen, but I don't know, I liked the vibes. It was fun, it was silly. It's like a I just need a movie to watch and I'm gonna have a good time type movie. So that's why I put it on my list.
Yeah, solid pick with the Fall Guy. It did make my honorable mentions, so I already kind of talked a little bit about it before, but yeah, I really did enjoy this movie. Like Miranda was saying, it's a lot of fun action. It's almost like a love letter to just like Hollywood filmmaking in general. Well, more so for like the stunt side of things, but I still found it to be really enjoyable, really funny. Definitely a good time. I would recommend.
Agreed with both of you. I really liked it. I liked it a lot more than I guess like not that I expected, but in retrospect, considering how many reviews are like pretty lackluster or kind of like middle of the road, I kind of questioned like my rating, my mental rating after like sitting and down and thinking about it more because there's so many middle of the road reviews and ratings, and I was like, huh, like is there just something about it that like I missed or something? But no, I mean when I think about it, it's exactly how you guys put it. It's just a really fun movie that you can watch that's like funny, has solid action moments, has good little bits, and like Ryan Gosling, one of my favorite actors, if not like my favorite actor of all time. And Emily Blunt is great. Admittedly, not like her greatest role, but like that's not her fault. She did what she could with the role. And I thought the direction here was solid from, I believe, David Leitch. Aaron Taylor Johnson was here, but he didn't really get a lot to do, so it is what it is. But yeah, just overall, like Miranda said, just like a really fun movie that you could like put on whenever, just whenever you want to watch like a solid movie. I haven't watched it since theaters, but I still stand by that. I feel like you could put it on whenever as either background movie or like you again just want to like find something quickly, like oh I have 2 hours, I just want to watch something. Boom, easy watch right there, fun, simple, funny, and just a good time. One other aspect that I really enjoyed that Dan kind of touched on is there's just a lot of like filmmaking humor in the movie. So there's a lot of like references to other films, to just like stuff from the industry and stuff like that. So I also enjoyed that aspect of the film a little bit more than I was expecting to. I wasn't expecting that going into the film, so it's very cool. And yeah, shout out to The Fall Guy.
Definitely go give those movies a watch. Let's move over to our number 4 pick. Mine was Turtles All the Way Down. So Turtles All the Way Down is a movie based off of a John Green novel of the same name. It's a very good movie, and I think it shows OCD and anxiety in a way that I've never seen it before, portrayed on screen. So it deals with like mental health issues and like topics surrounding that, but I also just really enjoy the main character's journey, navigating through her anxiety and also being like, how do I navigate my friendship with my best friend? How do I navigate a romantic relationship, and also on all top of that, solve a murder mystery. And it's just a little fun movie that I think a lot of people put a lot of time and effort into. It's directed by Hannah Marks, and the screenplay was by Elizabeth Bridger and Isaac Apter. I did not look up their names. I apologize if that's wrong. And I think they did a fantastic job at taking John Green's book and adapting it into a movie. I know John Green's books are not for everyone, but if you struggle with anxiety or know someone who struggles with anxiety or has OCD or struggles with OCD, I would recommend this movie just to give it a watch to maybe get a little more of their perspective on how they live in their everyday life. I don't have OCD, so I don't know how accurate it is, but John Green does, I believe. So I'm sure like the portrayal is more accurate than other things, and it just like reading the book and watching the movie showed me that perspective that I've never thought about before, which it's always great when a piece of media can like broaden your mind and get you to look into or understand someone else's point of view or their situation. So I really enjoyed it. It was a good watch. Would recommend.
Yeah, Turtles all the way down. I wasn't sure what to expect with this one going in. I've never read the book, and I wasn't even aware that this was a book or that this existed in any way, shape, or form until Miranda like showed us the trailer or like asked us if we wanted to watch it. And so I kind of went in, like, watched the trailer. After watching the trailer, I wasn't like against watching it by any means. It felt kind of like tried and true, like young adult novel-y, but like not in like a terrible way, just kind of like from watching the trailer I was like, okay, I feel like I know what this is gonna be like if I watch it. But so like finally it came out on Max, ended up like sitting down and watching it like soon after release, and I liked it. It was more in depth, kind of like how Miranda was saying with like the OCD and like that aspect of the story than like I was expecting, which was cool. And I think that that part of the film was handled pretty like quite well. And I thought that the friendship felt pretty authentic with Isabella Merced and Pri Chino. I don't know how to say her name, but they're the actors who played Aza and Daisy. But I thought that they did a really good job at making a really authentic friendship on screen and seeming like they were actually friends for like a long time. They played off of each other well. The movie itself was pretty funny. Like there's funny moments with them and like with their little friend group thing, whatever. There was like a couple of other aspects, like in terms of like the disappearance of Davis's dad. Like I didn't necessarily care too much for that. I wasn't sure like what was going to come of that, but it wasn't boring. Like I think it kind of came and went in like moments where it's like it was kind of interesting at this part of the film and then kind of just disappeared and then kind of came back and was like, oh, interesting, okay, and then again like disappear, whatever, kind of just like as like the other parts of the story went on. And like I will say, like there are a lot of different parts of the story, so the fact that like it even plays out these different parts pretty well is a good job, because there's a lot of very different parts of the story going on at the same time.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in the plot, and I think the book handles that way better than the movie does. So I can see like why it could be like strange for Davis's father's plot line to like show up in some places. But I wouldn't say that's like the main focus of the movie. It's definitely more prevalent in the book. And I do want to mention real quick, this movie actually got a physical response out of me, especially during like Aza's hospital stay with the hand sanitizer. So it's just something that my brain was thinking about a lot when it came out, and like I just had read the book and all that stuff. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that real quick before I forgot.
So would you say that Davis's dad's disappearance is like, well, you said it was handled better in the book, but like do you think it's more interesting in the book than what we got in the movie?
I just think it's mentioned more often, and like in the film it's not short, it's like 2 hours long. But like there's only so much you could do in a film, where a book it's a long form storytelling, so you can expand on things a lot more than you could in a short period of time when you're adapting something. Truthfully, I don't really remember the differences off the top of my head cuz it's been a moment, but it's definitely expanded more because it's a book.
Yeah, no, that's valid. That makes sense. But yeah, I mean, to your point, I've seen a lot of people say like the same thing where I got a very like visceral reaction out of them, and also it just impacted them in a very heavy way. So you're definitely not alone there. Definitely a very important story, and again, very well done, honestly. And kudos to the team that worked on this and adapted it because it seems like a lot of people were really touched by the story, just like for the story itself, but also like they were able to do justice to the book and they were able to create something special here that while obviously doesn't, replace the book, stands alongside it in like a meaningful good way where like if you read the book you can watch the movie, if you watch the movie then that might interest you in the book and then you'll probably like the story even more, so all good things there. I guess one aspect as well before I move on is that like when I watched the trailer, I didn't know that Isabella Merced was going to be in this, and I've liked her in pretty much everything I've seen her in. So I was like, okay, cool, like she's in this. That's exciting. I wonder how that'll be. And then this ended up being really good, and she was really good in it. And she might have, I believe, said something kind of talking about this during the Alien Romulus press tour, but it is kind of a shame that she doesn't get more lead roles in films because I feel like she could do like a really good job in, a variety of different projects, not even like just one genre, like just a variety of different genres. She could be really, really good, but she often gets relegated to side roles and stuff, which like I'm sure she's happy to like just be working, but like it is disappointing that she hasn't had as much luck getting lead roles. So hopefully this will be a good feather in her cap and she can get some better, higher tier lead roles in the future. But that's all. That's all my thoughts for the film. What about you, Dan?
Ah, yes, Turtles All the Way Down. I did end up checking this one out. We were going to review it at one point, but we weren't able to fit it in, hence why we all watched it. So I guess consider this our review. But yeah, it's been a while since I've watched this movie, so I'm gonna try to remember as much of it as I can. But right off the bat, I can tell you the strongest thing this movie had going for it was its characters. I thought the characters were great. I liked Isabella Merced's character. I loved her best friend. I loved the dynamic the two had. I felt they had great chemistry. They would play off of each other and whatnot. It felt like a really tried and true friendship, and I really appreciated that. I always like it when movies are able to really portray a friendship like that. Because what I mean by that is like you can look at the friendship in the movie and be like, yeah, I can buy that these two have been friends for like a while now. Like I really appreciate it when films are able to portray that well. So I thought the characters were great. I agree with most of what you guys have said. I think that the depiction of like OCD and whatnot was very well done. I mean, once again, I don't have that, so I don't really know what it's like to have something like that. But I think the way that the movie portrays it, I think it portrays it in the best way that it can. So I don't really have too much to say regarding this movie. I mean, other than the fact that once again the performances were great. I thought the story was interesting. I liked the characters. The characters were strong, and I'm gonna be honest. I thought some of the Dr Pepper product placement was kind of funny. I think I liked it when they were on the plane and like they were putting like Dr Pepper in like champagne glasses. Like that was really funny. Not gonna lie.
Dr. Pepper and Applebee's.
Yeah.
I mean, Dr. Pepper is a great soda pop.
It is. I'm not
It
gonna not
is.
gonna deny that. I love Dr. Pepper, but I just thought that was kind of funny as all. But yeah, I thought it was a good movie.
For the next four spot film, I'll go over to mine, which is Robot Dreams, directed by Pablo Berger. And technically, I guess this, depending on which country you're in, this is technically a 2023 release. I believe it premiered in festivals in 2023, but it didn't get an official US release until this year, like in this, or well, last year in the spring. So yeah, so technically 2024 movie for us plebs in the US. So that being said, I didn't know anything about this movie. I just liked the animation style and it looked cute. So I was like, you know what? I'll check it out. And my God, I was not prepared for the emotional turmoil I was going to be feeling by the end of this. For those of you who've watched it, if you've watched La La Land and you felt pain or heartbreak or like bittersweet happiness slash like just emotion, That's definitely what you'll feel at the end of Robot Dreams because it's basically just the ending of La La Land. But good lord, it just was done so well. And like I said, I wasn't sure what this was going to be. So going in, I was like, okay, this is cute. Like this is the story of like this lonely dog who sees this commercial for this robot companion, and then he's able to buy the robot companion, and then they make a really good pairing, and like the dog is really happy with the robot, and they're like having going on all these little adventures, and it's really cute and it's really wholesome and sweet. And then something happens, and the robot and the dog are kept apart, not because anything happened between them, like life just keeps them apart. And then you start going through the sequences of seeing the dog and the robot like have dreams about like missing each other, because since they're kept apart, because I guess just to explain, the robot is left on this beach that the dog doesn't have access to until the spring, and it's like all the winter, so you have to wait until like sometime in the spring or early summer to be able to go retrieve the robot, assuming it's still there. And so like you go through all these like sequences of both the robot and the dog like having these dreams slash nightmares of like insecurities and of like the other moving on and blah blah blah. And eventually they do move on and they find happiness in someone else. And then the ending is just basically seeing each other happy, and then like the bittersweet feeling that comes with that feeling of like seeing someone that you cared about a lot, being happy in their own life, but you also being happy in your own life. So it's like you miss them, but you're still, happy with what you have in your own life. So just a very, very bittersweet ending. Very, very sweet and wholesome overall. The animation, again, very beautiful. But good lord, this was such an unexpected surprise, and I was so happy I got to watch it. And I'm also grateful that my first viewing I wasn't didn't actually end up panning out, because I almost saw this for the first time on a plane, which thank God I didn't, because then I would have been just like bawling my eyes out on the plane. But I was way too sleepy when I was watching it, so I didn't really watch it, and then I just turned it off. But yeah, I really really loved it and highly highly recommend it. Yeah.
Yeah, this was also a movie that had been on my watch list for the longest time, and then I was finally able to check it out once it got released on Hulu. And I agree, I do think this is a pretty good movie. I like the animation's great. And much like Flow, like we had mentioned earlier, this is also a movie that's just complete visual storytelling. There's not really any dialogue. Like, there's music and whatnot, and there's like little voice hums and hers every here and there, but there's not really dialogue. So we love to see the visual storytelling. At least I love it. So I agree with a lot of what Udi had said regarding most of the story beats and whatnot, and the way the characters are and how everything is animated and whatnot. I didn't get quite the same emotional response that Udi got from it, but I can definitely see where that comes from, because yeah, it is kind of a sad story when you really think about it, because yeah, this dog, he's lonely, he doesn't really have anyone to hang out with, and then finally he makes this robot, and then he finally has someone to go hang out with, and then tragedy strikes because the robot gets rusted, and then he can't take it back home with him, and then the entire movie is just, oh, is he going to be able to get back with the robot and continue their friendship? Like that's where I feel like the core of the movie is, and they do a good job like taking you through that. And I will say, because when I first watched this movie, I did leave a little disappointed, because I felt like they were building up this one thing that was going to happen, and then in the end, it never ends up happening. So it's like, well, then why was this being built up? And upon thinking about that, I kind of have respect for the way that they end it like that, because yeah, the message there is that there's going to be people that enter into your life, and like Udi was saying, that eventually they might leave your life, and you'll want them to be a part of your life again, but that might not happen, and eventually you'll just have to learn to move on and be happy with the life that you have now. And upon thinking about that, I think that's a great message, and I'm glad that the movie did go for something like that instead of the traditional, oh, the dog reunites with the robot and it's a happy ending and whatnot. Personally, I enjoyed The Wild Robot and Flow a little bit more than I did Robot Dreams, but that's not to say that Robot Dreams wasn't a great animated movie in its own right. It really is, and I'm gonna recommend it as well.
Yeah, one quick little aside. Regardless of anything, and like you will like any one of these in any order. But like, what a great year for animation between Robot Dreams, Flow, and the Wild Robot. Like, my God,
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
just a freaking phenomenal year.
Missed them all because I did not watch Robot Dreams. It is on my watch list on Letterboxd, and it does say it's from 2023. Although you explained why it's on your list here now. Yeah, I didn't watch it, so I can't really comment on it. But it sounds like a good movie and well animated, at least based off like the poster and the images I just looked at. So I'm adding it to my list to watch for this year.
All right, and now I'll move on to my number four pick. And what I chose for number four was Furiosa. I believe the full title is Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, or something like that. But yeah, I thought Furiosa was great. It works as not only a good world building and a good side story to the Mad Max saga, but also serves as a great prequel to Mad Max Fury Road. Honestly, if you loved Fury Road, you'll love Furiosa. Anya Taylor-Joy and Chris Hemsworth both give great performances as the main leads. The cinematography is jaw-dropping, of course. I would expect nothing less from George Miller, and you know the action scenes are going to be great. But unfortunately, as Udi had mentioned earlier, this movie did not do too well at the box office, which is a darn shame because the best way to see this movie is in theaters. And I kind of doubt any re releases are going to happen anytime soon. But if by some miracle you do get the chance to see this one in theaters, please go do that. It's definitely worth experiencing in a theater. As Harry Styles once famously said, it feels like a movie that you should go see in a movie theater.
Nice.
Figured you'd appreciate that, Udi.
I'll never not appreciate a reference to the classic, iconic quote. Since I'm already talking, I'll just say my quick thoughts on Furiosa. I mean, yeah, like I already kind of talked about it a little bit earlier. Really, really, really well done movie. It's, I feel like a lot of people are going to feel this way. I personally feel this way. It's not as good as Fury Road, but it's also doing something very, very different. And I think once you get over that idea that like not every Mad Max movie has to be Fury Road from now on, I think it allows you to embrace this movie more outright and enjoy it for what it is. That being said, I can totally understand it not being for everyone. It does start a little slower than I would have expected, and it's fine. It's not too slow. It's not boring or anything. It's just slower, more methodically paced. It's broken up into chapters, so that aspect is a little interesting. As like you don't even see Anya Taylor Joy as Furiosa until maybe like 40ish minutes in or something like that. I don't know. So it takes a while to like kind of get the ball going, but it's crazy once it gets going.
Anya Taylor Joy has to earn the Furiosa suit, am I right?
Can't have the iconic look too soon,
Yeah,
can
it can't have the iconic look right then there.
But yeah, like just from the beginning, like that intro sequence is pretty crazy. You see, I believe it's like the Garden of Eden or just whatever the name of Furiosa's home is, I guess. But you get to see that the film plays with color in slightly interesting ways, just like Mad Max Fury Road did, and then just boom gets going. Takes its time telling the story, but like when it hits, and then man, we get some phenomenal action set pieces. Primarily, I think my favorite of the entire film is the assault on the war rig. That is just like chef's kiss. Like watching that in the theater was phenomenal. It was crazy. The camera work went hard. Just like the thought process of like every stunt was just crazy. Seeing how every part of the war rig comes in like into play in some way, shape, or form. Just man, so good. The music is fantastic. Chris Hemsworth, man, hats off to him. He, I feel like, is low key kind of an underrated actor where like you'll see him in all sorts of stuff, and like obviously famously he's Thor in the MCU, but I think he has more depth to him than I feel like a lot of people are willing to either admit or just like more than they think. So really showed off here. Was like born for this role, being that he's Australian and he had to play with like a fun Australian accent that's different from his own. He got to have prosthetic makeup on, and man, the car audio in the theater was freaking insane. I don't remember if I mentioned this before, but I think I did. I saw this in the Dolby Theater for my second viewing of the film, and man, the seat under me was literally like shaking violently every time that like there's a car accelerating. So it was freaking amazing. And even if you hadn't gotten to see it in a Dolby Theater, you just got to see it in a regular theater, it was still really, really good in a regular theater. But again, not enough people went, and who knows if we're ever going to get a Mad Max movie again. And I'm so upset by that. But this was really good, and definitely check it out if you can. So yeah, those are my quick thoughts on Furious.
Guess what? It's another movie I haven't watched. I really slacked on the 2024 movies last year.
Pain.
um, when it came out in theaters, I missed it. I saw it was on streaming, and then I just never had a desire to click on the thumbnail to actually watch it. But I do enjoy Mad Max Fury Road. I think that movie's fantastic. It's nice to hear that you guys liked Furiosa and that it actually has some good things because, yeah, like you mentioned, it did not do well in the box office, and there was, I'm sure, many angry people on the internet for many stupid reasons talking about this movie. So I never really like dived into any like reviews or anything, but it's on my watch list. I'm sure everyone in the movie did a great job. I mean, Anya Taylor-Joy is very talented, and Chris Hemsworth is also very talented. So that's another one added to my watch list. Let's move on to our third pick. Mine is Daniel Howell's We're All Doomed special. It's not a movie, but it is a very well produced stage show. I don't want to call it a comedy show, although it is very comedic, but it's a beautifully done stage show by Daniel Howell, previously known as Dan Is Not on Fire on YouTube. Back in 2022, I believe, he wrote the show and toured it around the US and Europe, I believe. But just to explain what it is, because I'm assuming you guys did not watch this, it's a show that talks about how the world is falling apart and how we're doomed and everything's dark and depressive and everything is just a really big struggle and that the people and humanity are not being good, and it's got sarcasm and satire, and like it just like takes everything that's wrong with society but blends it into a very well scripted, very thoughtful message of embrace the void and have the courage to exist, which I think is a really good message to have right now because the world kind of sucks. There's a lot of stuff going on. I don't want to get into it right now, but like there's just so much going on in the world that is stressful and depressing and terrifying, where this solo comedy stage show called We're All Doomed comes into play, and Daniel is just really good at taking that dark gloominess and adding a spin of comedy to it. And I also picked this one because I got to experience it via like a online live show. Like I bought a ticket, I hung out in a waiting room, I chatted with other Dan and Phil fans. So I just got to be part of that community that I haven't been a part of in a really long time. And it was just a really fun experience. So that's why I put it on here. It's a great watch. It's on YouTube. It's free. You could just go to Daniel Howell's channel. It's like probably the most recently uploaded thing on his channel. And it's just really fun and a really nice watch. And I love the message of embrace the void and have the courage to exist, because that's just a really strong message that I think a lot of people need to actually be like, yeah, it's terrifying. Everything's scary, but it's okay. I am going to continue to exist, and we're going to get through this one day at a time. Also, since I am talking about Daniel Howell, I wanted to mention Phil Lester as well. They're a duo. I did see the Terrible Influence tour, which I mentioned in my honorable mention. It is a live show. It was just so fun to be, again, part of that community of the fandom with a PH, and just to get to, like, hang out with people who have similar interests and are similar to me, and yeah, it was just a really fun experience. But yeah, that's all I have to say. Go check it out. It's fantastic. Definitely give it a watch.
So outside of anything that Miranda has like mentioned to us, like in passing or like mentioned to me, just like one on one, I don't know anything about this, and I haven't watched it. It does sound interesting though, and I am intrigued because I like what you talked about, like the idea of the thematic content that it covers. So I am intrigued, but I have not watched it yet, so I don't have any thoughts.
Yeah, I also don't really have any thoughts to share here because I also did not watch this and I'm not too familiar with the content behind it. But based off of everything Miranda explained, it sounds like it could be fun, so maybe I will check it out.
If you like sarcastic 30-year-old British guys, then it's perfect content for you. It's great. I think anyone can watch it, whether or not you know who Dan Howell or Phil Lester who they are as people. It stands by itself. It's standalone. You don't have to know everything about the fandom going all the way back to 2009 because that'd be ridiculous. If they did film Terrible Influence Tour, that you would need to know all their history. But not this, where All Doom is totally standalone.
I guess moving on to a movie I have watched. My number three movie of the year is Civil War, directed by Alex Garland. This was definitely one of the most highly anticipated movies of the year for me. I wasn't sure how I was going to tackle the, titled subject matter. There was like a very broad and generic sounding description of the film, like of the synopsis of the film on Letterboxd for a while. So yeah, I didn't really know what to expect. And then once the trailer came out, I wasn't sure how to feel. And then as the marketing machine got going, I wasn't really a fan of a lot of the things that A24 was doing with the marketing for this, like using not great AI generated posters for this. And they were kind of playing into the media cycle's response to just even the title and the trailer for this film, which I also thought wasn't necessarily that great. I thought the trailers were pretty well done, but I think overall as well, they're not really representative of what the movie actually is. So while like there's at least like two versions of the trailer that I liked, again, I don't really feel like they're that representative of what actually goes on in the movie. So anyway, that all being put aside, once actually getting to watch the film, man, what a freaking film. It is so good, in my opinion. I think that the title of the film unfortunately brings connotations that for a lot of people they just can't get past. They can't like think around what the title of the film is, and that's unfortunate because I think that the movie itself, like the story that's being told and how it's presented, is really, really well done. It is a freaking gorgeous movie. Again, if you have a 4K TV with like either Dolby Vision or good HDR, highly recommend buying the 4K disc for this because it looks phenomenal. But yeah, just a gorgeous, gorgeous film. There's so many really good shots. One of my favorite sequences in the film, and probably of the entire year, was this shot slash sequence that they did in this simulated burning forest where they literally like had embers that they were like fanning as they were like driving through this forest to make it look like it was like this forest on fire and stuff. So a lot of practical effects, practical lighting and stuff like that, and just looked gorgeous. And like the sound design is like top tier. Like seeing this in theaters, it sounded like a real gunfire. It was insane. And there's so much dynamic movement in the audio. Like it sounds kind of positioning, it sounds accurate, whatever. There's a lot of subtext, which I also really really like about this film. There's a lot of subtext where they don't really tell you a lot, which I know for some people it doesn't work, and that's fine. But like for me, it worked. It's one of those where if like you know a lot about politics and like the real world and like history and just a lot of different aspects related to that stuff, you can kind of piece together what the story is. And again, like that's trying to take the story in a more like deliberate manner because it's also not, it's really like the story really is not about a US Civil War. Like that is what's going on in the story and that's like the title of the film, but it's not really about that. That's just kind of what's happening in the background. Not to say that's not important to the story that's being told, but I digress. Overall, just really, really loved it. Performances were great. Kaylee Spaney, just another banger after banger after banger. Super excited to see what she does for the rest of her career. Kristen Dunst, really, really good here. Jesse freaking Plemons was the absolute highlight of the film. Just wow. And he wasn't even like, I don't know that, I don't think they've ever said who he replaced, but there was someone else who was supposed to play his role, and I don't know who it was, but I don't think it matters. I don't think anyone would have matched the level of intensity that Jesse Plemons portrayed here. And God, he's so threatening. But it's so funny because I've seen him in like so many different roles where he's like funny and goofy or like serious, but like serious funny and then like serious serious. And so like he's just such a phenomenal actor. And yeah, I love Alex Garland. Even, I respect him for the work he did with Men. I don't I'm not gonna say a lot about that, but like that's definitely his like lowest rated film and lowest appreciated film. It's a doozy. I don't know what to make of that movie. I feel like there's more there that I don't understand, but also at face value, not a great movie. But everything else in his filmography is fantastic, and he's done so much good work. And this is just yet another one in his filmography that is just like top tier. So yeah.
You know Jesse Plemons is a great actor when he was the highlight of the film for Udi, and he's only in, like, one scene. So
It's true. It's
yeah.
true.
But, no, I agree, Jesse Plemons, like, the scene that he was in was great. And, yeah, Civil War, it was in my honorable mentions. I did think that this was a great movie. Like Udi was saying, just the subtext that it has, I like the kind of messaging that it says, and yeah, if you're expecting more of a straightforward story and more of just like a war movie that takes place within the United States, you're not gonna get that. That's not what this movie's about. So that's why maybe for some people it didn't really work because they were expecting something completely different from what we got. But from what I watched, I thought it worked. I thought the characters were interesting, the writing was pretty strong, and while I did have some issues with the movie not necessarily being clear on what exactly the Civil War is about, which I know technically the movie's not about the Civil War, but for me personally, I would have liked just a little bit more of an explanation to know what they're fighting over, and the movie doesn't really tell you that, which is not really a detriment to the film. That's just the type of film that Alex Garland was going for. He wasn't looking to really make something that's as straightforward as that, which I understand. But I still personally would have liked that, but I don't think that brings the movie down that much for me. I still thought this was a great movie. It was good enough to make my honorable mentions. I do think that you should give this one a watch. I mean, once again, if you're expecting just a standard like war movie about United States Civil War, that's not what you're going to get. So keep your expectations in check, but I really did enjoy this one.
I did not watch it. It's nice to hear you guys talk about it and that you guys liked it. I feel like I say that every time there's a movie that I haven't watched. But the reason I'm not gonna watch this one or put it on my watch list is because when I saw the trailer it gave me a panic attack. Which means I have a feeling that the whole movie would give me a panic attack, and I don't want to experience a 2 hour long panic attack. I'm sure the people who worked on the movie and are in the movie are great, just that's my reasoning why I sat this one out. Not my vibe.
Yeah, 2 hour long panic attack does not sound fun, so I can understand that.
Nope. Does not sound fun at all.
All right, I'll say what my number three is next. So I went with Strange Darling. Now, I really don't want to say a whole lot about this movie as I think it's best experienced going in completely blind. I decided to go see this movie on a whim at the theater, and I had never even heard of it. I did watch the trailer though, and I gotta say, they do a good job of hiding what the movie is really about in the trailer. So it doesn't hurt to watch the trailer if you're interested. The movie was a great experience. Once again, I feel like what really helped with my experience was that, I went in blind. It kept me guessing the entire time. And the fact that it's told in a non sequential order to keep you guessing, I feel that really helped it. There's so many twists and turns this movie takes you in as you start to slowly put the pieces together through the film's non-chronological narrative. Yeah, it's a wild ride. Great performances, great writing, a really good twist, and great direction helped make this film one of the year's best, in my opinion.
I'll go about this in the same way that Dan did. I really, really like Strange Darling as well, and I also agree that It really is paramount to watch it blind or as blind as possible. It's not necessarily that like if you find out what it's about that it's going to ruin it, but I really do feel like it will lessen the impact of the stuff that goes on because it is kind of like a mystery and it's like a fun mystery because everything's out of order and I just feel like it's constructed in this way for a reason and if you don't know what's going to go on, it's just the better way to enjoy the film. So I'm not going to really say a lot about it as well, but all I'll say is really, really well done. Again, I talked about cinematography earlier with Giovanna Ribisi, and I really like Ella Fitzgerald and Kyle Gallner. Yeah, just a really great little film that I'm very curious to see how long it took to shoot because I feel like it had to have been like an easy breezy, pretty simple like indie shoot, but man, they really, really made it count because just a really phenomenal film. The song I think that they made for the film, I could be wrong about that, but Love Hurts just like got stuck in my head. It's done like it's played in such a great way in the film and like they bring it in throughout and it's like played kind of thematically and just like great performances, really well shot, great pacing, really pulls you in, like kind of funny, but like very dark and yeah, just very really really well done. Highly recommend for sure.
Do you want to take a guess on what I'm about to say?
It's actually Miranda's Secret #1 of the year.
Yeah, no, I did not watch this one. I did not even know this was a movie or a thing. I've never heard of it. Sounds interesting, but also sounds like it's giving Memento vibes, so I don't know. Is it better or worse than Memento? Like non-chronological like order of the timeline. Like is it confusing like a Christopher Nolan movie or like understandable?
It's not confusing. It just played out of order so that like it plays up the mystery aspect, but like cuz
Okay, I
if
see.
yeah, if it wasn't out of order, it wouldn't necessarily be a mystery. It'd be pretty straightforward, but like this makes it so much more interesting by doing it out of order. So yeah, definitely not confusing.
Okay. Sounds like an interesting film.
It was.
Would one say it's strange?
It wasn't. No, just kidding. I mean,
That'd be a plot twist.
depending
You're
who
like,
you are, I mean, maybe a little bit more strange than for others, but pretty. I don't know. It was a little freaky, I guess, but other than
hmm,
that, it's fine.
interesting. Alrighty. Shall we move to our second pick?
Yeah.
Okay, mine is Alien Romulus. I picked this one for number two because I don't know, I just really liked it. I've thought about it quite a bit since I saw it. It's familiar enough, which I like, which brings some sort of sense of comfort, which is nice, I guess. It's unique enough to the Alien franchise, at least in my opinion. I'm not an expert on Alien. I found it fun and enjoyable, and this one also got a physical reaction out of me. Like, I jumped, I was fully invested in the story, and I just overall liked it. I enjoyed it. I think it was really well done. I know there was some controversy, and I believe we have an episode on Alien Romulus. So go check that out for our full thoughts on the movie because it's just a fun little movie. And I think it slots into the Alien franchise, especially being like technically chronologically after the first one really well. And I just liked that it was a cast full of nobodies, or at least nobodies to me. Although I guess I'm just now realizing that one person in Alien Romulus is also Aza, I believe, in Turtles All the Way Down.
Yeah, it's Isabella Merced.
Yes, I did not realize she was her. So that's neat. But yeah, Alien Romulus, great film.
I had already briefly touched on Alien Romulus with my honorable mentions, but I did like it. I did think it's great. And if you're an Alien fan or a horror movie fan, I think you should check it out.
I really love this movie. The only real con, depending on how you feel about it and who you are, is the AI usage to recreate the guy who played Ash in the original. I believe his name is Ian Holm. Yeah, that's really the most divisive part of the film, and really the one aspect where it's like they didn't really need to do this, and it kind of just took away from a thing that otherwise would be, 10 out of 10. But yeah, otherwise, the film was really, really great. Really gross, really grotesque. Probably one of the scariest alien movies so far, but very well done. So,
All right, I'm going to go ahead and talk about my number 2 pick for 2024. And at number 2, I have Flow. Now, Flow is an interesting movie. I had never even heard of it up until it started making some noise online around the later half of 2024. People were calling it one of the best animated movies of 2024, and immediately that had my attention. I'm always on the lookout for the next great animated movie. Honestly, the only marketing I'll ever need to go check out an animated movie is to just hear that it's really good. If I hear that an animated movie is really good, I don't even need a trailer at that point because I'm probably going to go check it out. So, but yeah, so I obviously had my radar set on Flow. And it's funny because Flow was actually what I was hoping the Wild Robot would be. When the first trailers for the Wild Robot hit, I thought it was going to be a film that relied purely on visual storytelling, but that didn't really end up being the case. I was still happy with what we got with the Wild Robot, but I was kind of hoping that we were going to get something different. And Flow was exactly that. It's a movie with no dialogue, just pure visual storytelling. Mix that in with a unique art style, good animation, an intriguing story that takes place in an almost fantasy esque setting, and a wonderful soundtrack, and you have a movie that I really didn't find too much wrong with. It did exactly what it set out to do, and I feel it executed it flawlessly. There's not really much about it that I can think of where it's like, all right, they could heavily improve this part or that part. I mean, sure, maybe the animation could be touched up a little bit here or there, but this was a low budget animated movie made entirely in the free animation software Blender. So I'm not going to judge it too much, if at all, but I loved Flow. I can't promise that you'll also love it. I feel like it's one of those movies that will either connect with you or you might just find it boring and uninteresting. Of course, if you're an animation fan like me, please go watch it. It really deserves any and all the support that it can get.
yeah, I mean, Dan kind of wrapped up most of the same thoughts that I had, but this was definitely a surprise of the year for me. I didn't, again, like, I think I knew about it before Dan did, but like, it was just one of those where you kind of heard about it. It's like, oh, okay, well, if it comes near me, I'll try to check it out. And then thankfully it came close by and I was able to go check it out. And yeah, just gorgeous movie. I didn't know that it was going to be essentially silent. Like, I didn't know that there was going to be no dialogue. So that was a cool surprise. I mean, it makes sense. They're animals, but just a very beautiful film with a beautiful story, beautiful message. The animation being done entirely in Blender was also a surprise. I had no idea. I only saw that in the end credits when I was sitting there after the movie. I was like, "Oh my god, that's crazy! That's awesome!" So that was very cool. I would highly recommend it if you're interested in it at all. I mean, again, the biggest thing you should know going into it is that there is no dialogue. So, but otherwise, it's really, really, really beautiful and yeah, I would very very much recommend you checking it out if you're even remotely interested because it's simple in its execution and it's all the better for it. So I'll just leave it at that.
It all being made in Blender fascinates me. I tried to learn Blender like 3 years ago now at this point. So for someone to make an entire movie out of like with that program, amazing. I'm going to have to go sit down and watch this movie this weekend or something cuz from what you guys are saying, I missed out on a really interesting movie and I'm kind of sad about that.
And before we move on to our number one, my number two movie of the year is Nora, and I again heard a lot of great reviews for this film, like just like tons of rave reviews. But I wasn't sure like what to expect. I've heard of like tons of the recent movies that this director has done. Sean Baker, I know that he did Tangerine, Red Rocket, and The Florida Project, which are like three pretty recent films by him that were highly acclaimed. and I've been meaning to watch like all of them, but I haven't, and I feel really bad because I did start watching the Florida Project one day, but it was like it was a bad idea. I was kind of busy, but I like wanted to take a break, so then I was like, oh, I'll just watch this movie, but I didn't have enough time to finish it, and like what I did watch was really good, but I feel bad for doing that. But that being said, this was yet another fantastic film of his. Just like really, really, really good performances. The lead who plays Honora, her name is Mikey Madison. Just she felt like a real person. She felt like she inhabited this person whose name is Honora and or Annie, and just became this human being in this alternate timeline of Earth. Like it just all felt so real. It's very funny. It's one of those where it's like you don't expect it to be funny, and then just like through the hilarity of the situation that's going on, or like because of the situation, like it's just funny. But like also because of dialogue, like it is just one of those nice surprises where it just happens to be really funny throughout. And aside from that, like the writing in general is just really, really good and shot incredibly well. And it's just one of those day in the life type movies. Like it takes place longer than just like one day, but it's just like that genre of film where it's like day in the life, and you're like following this character around and like just living life through their perspective, basically. But it's done really, really well, and this more so than anything made me super excited to check out any of Sean Baker's films. I know that they can be a little controversial, and I think like the last 3 or so have all dealt with like sex workers in some way, shape, or form. Which I mean, again, that's part of why they're controversial. Unfortunately, I love when a good auteur director has free reign to basically just tell interesting human stories, and that's really all of this is here. So yeah, really, really love this one. Highly recommend it. And you don't necessarily have to go in blind, but like it's one of those where it's like it's kind of hard to spoil, but like also you should just experience it if you can blindly, if like you don't know anything about it, because why not. But highly recommend it.
Yeah, I've been hearing really good things about Honora. Once again, I unfortunately did not get the chance to watch it before we recorded this episode, but it is on my watch list. I hope I get to watch it soon because, yeah, I've been hearing nothing but great things. And the director, in terms of his past movies, while I haven't seen The Florida Project, I have seen Red Rocket, which is honestly a pretty good movie. I did enjoy that one, so I'm pretty sure I'll end up enjoying Honora as well.
Yeah, that's another movie that I did not know existed. It sounds interesting, so I might put it on my watch list. But let's move to our number ones of 2024. Mine's a little different as it is not a movie and it's not a television show or streaming. Well, it's a streaming show. But my number one is Misfits and Magic 2, which is the second season of the Dimension 20 series Misfits and Magic. For those who are not familiar, Dimension 20 is a actual play tabletop role-playing game show on the service Dropout. In 2024, the second half of it, I got really into watching Dropout content. There's some very talented people over there doing some very fun and cool stuff. That's probably why I missed a lot of movies in 2024 because I was consuming Dungeons and Dragons content. But I guess I'll just run down Misfits and Magic real quick. Basically, the people involved are Abria Agard. Apologizing for saying that most likely wrong. She is the game master, so she's the one that put the story together, and then the players are Brendan Lee Mulligan, Lou Wilson, Danielle Radforth, and Erica Ishii. The four of them are playing 20-something-year-olds, and they have to go basically save magic and figure out this new system of how to make a new magic system. But this second season creates a very beautiful story about community and finding belonging and understanding who you are as a person with some hilariously funny moments. And of course, a lot of it is in the moment storytelling because it's all based on the roll of the dice, which I find very fascinating. Is very different than movies. very different than like TV shows because those are all pre-written. So it's just like this interesting combination of storytelling and improv that my brain just like latched onto, and that's why I feel like I need to mention it cuz it is the most like prevalent thing my brain has consumed from 2024. But to go back to the plot, these four characters are just learning to be 20 something year olds, and they're set out on this great adventure, and they learn that it's okay to take up space, and it's okay to just be loved. It's okay to just be yourself, and you don't have to put on 47 different hats. You could just be yourself, and that's enough. Or it's great to help people, but sometimes you need to look at your life and be like, oh, I'm doing this way. Maybe there's a better way. Maybe I need to reach out to my friends and my family and grow with them and like have a support system. Or the world might see me as this way, but I am confident, I am powerful, I am smart. These people who play and are telling the story are just very talented performers, that they're able to improv a deep and important story with so much preparation. It's not all improv. There's so much preparation that goes into Dimension 20 shows that it's like a crazy amount. But it also has an interesting set design. They use a lot of cool lighting things, and it's just ridiculous in the best way possible. And there's even like a little bit of like emotional moments between friendships and the bonds that you hold with friendships, and like very deep and touching, relatable moments that I think I just needed to experience and watch. And this series, this season of Dimension 20 gave that to me, that I was able to sit down and experience that with these characters. And it was just a really fun time. I know it's a little different than everything else we've been talking about, but I just felt like I needed to talk about it because it really has made an impact on my life. So, yeah, I would highly recommend it. It's crazy, it's ridiculous, it plays with tropes. There's a whole episode on a soap opera island that is nutso. Like, you think soap operas are crazy. Now imagine this plus 11 to affinity. Like, it's so good. I would highly recommend it.
Yeah, once again, I don't really have much of, if anything, to say about this because I don't think I had ever heard about Dimension 20 before you had mentioned it to us, Miranda, but it sounds interesting. I remember I tried to get into Critical Role at one point, and while I'm not going to say that this is the same thing because I've never seen it before, it kind of sounds similar to what Critical Role does. So maybe I'll check it out then. I'm interested.
Yeah, I believe Abria and Brennan Lee Mulligan have been or partnered with Critical Role on something. I know there's like this one specific guy, I think his name is Matt, that has done stuff with Dimension 20. It's all that like group of famous D&D players, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, from what you've talked about, Miranda, I mean, it sounds really great, but I'm in the same camp as Dan. I have not watched this. Just from your word of mouth review and what you've said and whatnot, I mean, it looks and sounds really interesting. So I'm definitely intrigued to check it out between both this and the Daniel Howell We're All Doomed special that you mentioned earlier. It's cool to see two things that I know absolutely nothing about be listed here, and like things that I could check out that I like know nothing about. So, well, aside from like what you mentioned, but like aside from that, just like having something that you have such high reviews for and like ratings for, at least not necessarily numerically, but that you like a lot, that I'm intrigued to check out. And so, moving on to Dan and I's number one movie of the year, it's Dune
Dune
Part
Part 2.
2.
Which, I mean, once again, I'll be keeping this short as hint, hint, nudge, nudge. We have an entire review on this episode. I know we've said that like a million times throughout the recording of this episode, but it's true, you know? Like, if you really want to get our thoughts on these movies, please go check out our past episodes. But as I said in our review, I didn't think anything was going to top Dune Part 2 as my favorite film of 2024. And what do you know? I was right. Nothing this year came close to being as great as Dune Part 2 was, at least in my opinion. This was truly an epic movie, from the action to the cinematography to the acting, and being the granddaddy of all sci fi stories also helps its case. Dune Part 2 was a spectacle to behold, Denis Villeneuve does not miss.
Big agree on that last statement. Yeah, I mean, like Dan said, we have a review of this already on the podcast, so I won't talk for too long. But yeah, I was also in the same boat as Darren, where I didn't know if anything else could top Dune Part Two this year, especially considering it like came out so early in the year. I was like, man, this was so good. Like this was legendary. This was one of the best sequels made of all time. Like a film that people are going to be talking about for decades and decades, and just wow, just a phenomenal piece of art and filmmaking, like in every regard, and just a straight upgrade from the previous film, which I already loved. So like this way, way, way better is crazy. I'm kind of glad that nothing else topped it because it's like, man, like this is the peak of the year right here. I'll be, I'm kind of daring anything else to top it, and nothing else topped it. But on the other hand, it's like, man, I don't know what that says necessarily for the rest of the year, but either way, taking it as a good thing. Like, just really cool that we got to see something so good so early in the year, especially because this was meant to be like a late fall release originally. So I just really, really hope this doesn't screw it in the Oscars, and I get the feeling that it will because the Oscars suck and the Academy sucks. So, oh well. But Denis deserves all the praise in the world, as does the cast and the crew, because again, just in every regard, this film is a masterpiece. Just absolutely loved it. One of my favorites of all time for sure.
I love that you guys love Dune. I am so happy that you guys enjoyed it so much that it made your number one spot. There are some really cool things in Dune, like the black and white infrared like scene. A few other things were really interesting. It's a good movie. Denny, as always, is great. There's nothing too bad about it. It just didn't make my list because I found other movies or other media that I personally like a bit more, although I do enjoy a good sci-fi. Like I really was excited for the first Dune, but I don't know, something about the second one. Maybe it was just not the right time for me to watch it and I need to rewatch it, but like I said, I love that you guys love this movie so much cuz it is a masterpiece even though it's not my favoriteest movie of 2024. It is a masterpiece in showing cinematography, the desert, the lighting, the acting. Like it's is a beautiful film. Those were our top 5 of 2024. But were there any movies on our list that we were shocked to see on each other's list or surprised that didn't show up on our list? I would say for me at least, I assumed Dune was going to show up and The Wild Robot, but your other movies, some of them I didn't even know about. So that was really cool to learn that there's all these amazing movies out there that I didn't know about and now I do. So maybe I'll check them out.
Yeah, I mean, your list didn't really surprise me all that much, Miranda, but for Udi, I was kind of surprised that Strange Darling didn't make the cut. And I was a little surprised to see that you put Robot Dreams on there. I didn't know you, not that I didn't know. I didn't expect you to like that movie as much as you did, so that was interesting.
Yeah, I feel like my top like 15-ish or so are they could switch around pretty much at any moment. Like I would say like my top 3 are pretty cemented. Seeing floating around somewhere in there potentially, but yeah, everything else there's like a few where I'm like I get the urge to like should I bump this up? Like there was like the ones I really liked from this year I really liked. So yeah, that's totally fair. But I would say that the one I was most surprised by on your list, Miranda, specifically, was Alien Romulus. Not because you didn't like it. I just was A, surprised that you liked it as much as you did, and two, that it was so high up in your list. So that was cool.
I mean, to be fair, I only saw like 15 2024 movies, so I was really
Fair.
working with a small selection.
Valid. That's valid.
Like I made my list 4 or 5 different times. Like Twisters was on there at one point. Venom 3, Sonic 3 were all on there at one point. So this is the list that I made and finalized about a minute before we started. So,
That's
but
valid.
yeah, it changes and fluxes so much because it's all based on vibes for me. It's not like a objective-y type thing. But I really did like Alien. It was really fun.
That makes sense. I guess like from your top five, Dan, the only one that I was kind of surprised that it being in your top five, which again, not necessarily surprising because I remember like after you watched it, like you were really like hype about it, you really really liked it. But I am actually kind of surprised that Strange Darling was in your top five because I just feel like with like Dune, like the three really good animation films, which I mean, granted, you didn't like Robot Dreams as much as I did, but like you still liked it. I don't know. I'm a little surprised, but like I'm happy. I really like that movie, so I'm really happy that it's so high on your list.
That's 100% fair because even I'm a little surprised that that movie made my top 5. So I get that.
Yeah, that's fair. But hey, here's to variety, you know.
Definitely. I swear my personality isn't just kaiju, superheroes, and animated movies.
No, yeah, no, you like some really good movies too. Like, there's movies that I haven't watched that you've watched that like I'm really intrigued by. So like, you got some good stuff brewing there. But on a different note, what was your most highly anticipated movie of the year? And did it live up to the hype?
I would say Dune Part 2. If I, like you had mentioned before, that was a movie that was supposed to come out in 2023, but then it got delayed until 2024, so they were really teasing us with it. But considering it's my favorite film of 2024, I'd definitely say it lived up to the hype.
Hey, look at that. I figured you were gonna say that. That's definitely my answer as well for sure. Dune Part 2. I was so freaking hyped for it, and it did not disappoint in any way, shape, or form. It was literally perfect. But just to give a different answer, I'm gonna go with Civil War. That was one where again, like I was looking forward to it, and then like the trailer came out, and I was like, I'm still, excited. I think it'll be good. I don't really know what to expect, but I'm hoping for the best. And then like I started seeing some like pretty positive reviews online, so I was like, okay, getting a little excited. Hopefully I don't get too excited and it ends up being disappointing. And honestly, I really, really liked it. I definitely feel like it lived up to my own hype, despite everything. Like the first experience of watching it, I had no idea what to expect. Actually getting to experience it and live through the story and everything, and then getting to that end. The ending of that movie does not work for everyone. I know for a fact it will not work for everyone. But as soon as it was like, I could see where the story was going. Like it's gonna end right there, and then it did. I was like, ah, yeah, that was killer. It was so good. But what about you, Miranda? What was your most highly anticipated movie of the year? And did it live up to the hype?
I guess my most highly anticipated movie was Venom 3, and it was good. It was memey. I liked it. I mean, there's ridiculousness in it. Although I wish they would have went a little more into the fanfic realm. Like, we could have had a Venom Eddie wedding in Las Vegas, or they could have crashed. I forget the characters' names, but Eddie's ex fiance and her new boyfriend's wedding in Las Vegas. Like, I don't know. I just was hoping it was a little more fanficky, which, hey, that's on me, because why would it be? I mean, I know it's kind of a meme, and it is in some versions of canon. Eddie and Venom are a thing, which is fascinating, I guess. Interesting. But it makes sense that this movie didn't really go into that. So yeah, I found it okay. I mean, it didn't really live up to the hype. I didn't try to get hype for it because I knew if I raised my expectations, I would just be disappointed. So I kind of just go in with no expectations on a lot of things and always end up pleasantly surprised. Usually, not all of the time.
If you expect disappointment, you can't be disappointed.
I guess so. But if you expect nothing, you always are pleasantly surprised.
As they say, expect the worst, hope for the best.
Yeah, I guess so. Speaking of which, that's actually a pretty nice transition. Were there any movies this year that you didn't expect much from and ended up liking way more than you thought you would?
Yeah, for me, it's definitely Sonic 3. Now, I will say I've never been a fan of the Sonic movies. Don't get it twisted. I love Sonic the Hedgehog. I love that franchise. I love the games. I love the character. Ask anybody who knows me personally. They'll one of the first things they'll tell you is, "Yeah, I'm a big Sonic fan." Even my own nieces and nephews know me as the Sonic guy. But anyway, that's besides the point. But yeah, I love Sonic, but I just I just never got the same thing everybody else got out of these movies. Like, people love the first Sonic movie and people love the second Sonic movie, but me, I don't know. I just don't think they're very good movies. The first film felt like any generic live action adaptation of any kids cartoon, and here is my boiling hot take. But I truly believe that the first Sonic movie owes all of its success to the design change. I really don't think it would have been as successful if they hadn't changed the design or if they would have had the good design from the get go. So, was it all a marketing ploy? Probably not, but I'm not about to get into that. And while I did enjoy parts of the second movie more than the first, it took the stupidity of the first film and cranked it up to 11. So for Sonic 3, I went in with pretty low expectations. I was expecting more of the stupidity that we got with the first two movies, but it actually ended up being pretty decent. There was a lot of legitimate laughs, some good jokes, and it even had some pretty mature moments that I really appreciated. I also liked how they handled Shadow's story. I felt that it was adapted pretty well from the source material. And while there still were some jokes here and there that didn't land with me and kind of reminded me of the first and second movie, I still really enjoyed my time with Sonic 3. I surprisingly liked it.
Dan, why are we the same person? I was gonna say Sonic 3 as well. God dang it.
Great minds think alike.
I guess I'm gonna give a different answer, but just to give my quick thoughts. I mean, I'm not as much of a Sonic guy as Dan. Like Dan is definitely the bigger Sonic fan, but I also didn't really like the first two Sonic movies. So I went in with no expectations, like whatsoever, same as Dan, and I was like, wow, I was blown away honestly because I had my expectations were like negative. They were chilled. They were frozen under like 10,000-year-old ice. Like I had zero, nothing whatsoever. And so like starting the movie, it started like to feel kind of like the other two, and I was like, oh great. I hope this doesn't feel like this the rest of the time, because otherwise it's gonna be a long like hour and a half or however long. But no. Like the beginning felt kind of Sonic-y, and then the rest of it just got better and better, got funnier and funnier. And there was one joke that was like so freaking specific. It was the Green Lantern joke that it was hilarious. Like one of the funniest jokes I've ever heard in a movie and like been in the theater for because it was so funny. Yeah, just overall really great. But my, I guess, alternative answer is Transformers 1. Now, I am the Transformers guy of the group, and I do, for better or worse, like Transformers stuff. That's not to say I like everything, and like even some of the Michael Bay movies, most of the Michael Bay movies, I don't really like that much. In retrospect, I like them because of nostalgia and this or that, but like 4 and 5, bad. 3 is not great. 2 is also not necessarily great, but I like it more than the others. And then 1 is the best for sure. And then, Rise of the Beast, I think, is better than all the others. And then Bumblebee is also really good. And the original 80s animated movie is the best of all. Anyway, though, so I was not looking forward to Transformers 1 because I thought it looked bad. The trailer was not good. And so when it was coming out around the same time as The Wild Robot, and I wanted to go see both, but Transformers 1 was getting an IMAX 3D release, which was like the first time in like a decade or something that an animated movie was going to get an IMAX 3D release. So I wanted to make a point to go and see it, and I'm really grateful that I did because I really ended up liking it. I wouldn't say, I guess that was one of the movies I missed earlier when I was saying like great year for animation. I really liked it. It did feel probably like the most made for kids out of all of the ones that we talked about on this episode, in terms of like animated movies, but it was still really enjoyable. I liked the animation more than I thought I was going to, and I really liked the 3D experience in IMAX when I went to go see it. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm ever going to see it again in 3D, but I thought it was really cool, and sad no one went to go see it. There's a lot of other movies this year that did better than I think they should have. Not because, it's nice that movies are doing well in theaters, but it just sucks when like movies like that, and not to compare them, but like even Furiosa, which is another like way better movie, but like should have done better in theaters and it didn't. So, oh well.
Transformers 1 is a really good pick because The trailers for that movie did not do it any favors. I thought the trailers for Transformers 1 made that movie look terrible, generic. It looked like it was going to be a whole bunch of just nothing but bad jokes. But yeah, it was a nice surprise. It was nothing like the trailers. And yeah, I agree. I also liked it. And definitely, probably my biggest surprise of the year.
Badassatron.
Oh, don't get me started. What about you, Miranda? Did you have a movie at all this year that you didn't have high expectations for, but ended up really liking in the end?
A movie that I did not expect much from is Twisters, the sequel to Twister. I am a person who watches Twister when it rains and storms. I don't know, it's a family thing. It's kind of weird. I don't think it's weird. Maybe other people do. But I was very nervous about this sequel because I didn't know if they were gonna go hardcore reboot or like put all of those extra fan servicey type things where they just shove reference after reference after reference. But no, they didn't do that. They made a very nice storm anxiety inducing movie. I wouldn't, I don't know if that's technically nice, but when watching it, I was like, "Oh, this is a really pleasant time." I thought the main like cowboy guy YouTuber was gonna be a really like terrible jerk face, and actually him and his crew are actually people who like care about making sure that people have fresh clothes and food and water, especially after these natural disasters, which was nice to see. There's a bit of that like in the original movie Twisters, the group of storm chasers are a little bit of a weirdos. There's a little bit of that in this new sequel. And I actually like the story they went with, and oh, the first like 10 minutes are absolutely brutal. Like I was not ready for that and they did that, and I was just like, "Okay, now I know what I'm here for." And yeah, as someone who has storm anxiety, wasn't exactly the most pleasant watch, but I have rewatched this movie more times than pretty much any other movie I saw in 2024, which is kind of weird, but not really. So, yeah, if you haven't watched Twister or Twisters, I highly recommend both of them. They're a little cheesy and stupid, but in the most fun way possible. That's pretty much our conversation, so let's wrap it up with what are your top 3 to 5 most highly anticipated films for 2025?
Definitely Blade, without a doubt. Just kidding. That movie's never gonna come out.
Please, please come out still, please.
Oh my god. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think it's still scheduled for 2025, so we'll see, but
No,
don't hold
I'm
you.
pretty sure it's
Oh, is
delayed.
it scheduled for 2026 now? Okay.
I think it's delayed indefinitely. I don't think they rescheduled it, which is not a good sign.
Yeah, well, does that really surprise you though?
No, but
Yeah.
I'm forever gonna hold a freaking grudge because it's so stupid.
Yeah. Once again, not gonna get too much into it, but still, why is it so hard to make a Blade movie? But once again, besides the point, not getting into that. But anyway, for movies that I actually am looking forward to for 2025, this is in no particular order, but Jurassic World Rebirth, Fantastic Four, The First Steps, the live action How to Train Your Dragon remake, which is probably a slightly controversial pick, but I'm legitimately interested to see if DreamWorks can pull off the live action remake treatment better than Disney can. So I am anticipating that one. Mission Impossible Final Reckoning, of course, 28 years later. And, of course, you all should know my most anticipated movie of 2025 is the Minecraft movie. Am I right? Dude, Jack Black is Minecraft Steve. Like,
Totally, totally.
yeah, yeah. No, that movie's gonna be. I mean, yeah, that movie's gonna be
That
great.
movie's gonna be a movie.
Yes. No. I'm just kidding, of course. You all know it's Superman, and if you didn't know, it's Superman. I'm our resident DC fanboy, and Superman is my favorite superhero of all time. So this is one of the most important movies for me personally, and the birth of James Gunn's new DCU has me very excited. It's already off to a strong start with Creature Commandos, so please, for my sake, all 12 of you listening right now, Please go see Superman when it comes out. I need this movie to succeed. It's been a rough decade for us DC fans, and it looks like there's finally a light at the end of the tunnel. That is, unless Superman bombs, which, if that happens, it's going to be nothing but Batman movies for the next 20 years. So, once again, I stress, please go see Superman from a desperate DC fan. But all right, what about you guys? What are the films you're looking forward to this upcoming year?
So my most highly anticipated movies of this coming year, I'm gonna give a couple of honorable mentions real quick. Death of Unicorn looks interesting. It's an A24 movie starring Jenna Ortega. This movie called Ash, starring Isa Gonzalez and Aaron Paul. That just looks really pretty and interesting. And then Sinners by Ryan Coogler looks really cool. It's a vampire film and period piece, so that is interesting. But my top five most highly anticipated movies of the year, in no particular order: Superman. I mean, come on, it looks really promising, and I'm not the Superman guy like Dan, but I like Superman, and I just want DC to do well and to have really good superhero films so that we can just all have really good superhero films, and then maybe that'll push Marvel to go even harder and make even better movies. So it's a win-win for everyone. And God, please let it do well. Please, please let it break like $750 million. It's not because I want the corporation to make a bunch of money. It's because I want DC to succeed.
Maybe it'll push Marvel to finally release the Blade movie.
Oh my God. Kevin, hire us, please. Jesus, we can do it for you. Good Lord, how hard could it be? Ah. Sorry, Kevin, I didn't mean to yell at you. Anyway, Mickey 17, very excited. That was supposed to be a this year release, I believe, and then got delayed, and then got delayed again. I just hope it's good. I'm very promising. It's Bong Joon-ho and Robert Pattinson. I believe it's going to be really good, but I'm just hoping that it gets a good release with like plenty of PLF time and it does well. Please, if you complain that nothing good original ever comes out, please, 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 please go see it. Technically, it's an adaptation of a book, so it's not original, but like it's not like some other big sort of IP. Please go check it out. I'm sure it's going to be good. I don't mean to burn another like slot with like another superhero movie, but I'm cautiously optimistic for the Fantastic Four. I like the cast individually. I still don't know how I feel about Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards. I love the man. I love him in everything I've ever seen him, but like I still don't know how I feel about the casting, but maybe with this specific interpretation it can work. I hope that they nail the period piece time. I hope that they nail the villains and everything else they decided to do in this. And I just really hope it seems like Kevin is putting all of his baskets in this, or all of his eggs in this basket. My bad. But yeah, I just really hope it's good. If it's not good, then as Dan has said before, I'll let you just say the quote, Dan, because I want you to say it.
All right, yeah. So, if this Fantastic Four movie is not good, then this franchise is officially cursed for live action
Literally.
adaptations because there has not been a single good I almost said Transformers. Let me start thinking of the Michael Bay Transformers movies, which that's not entirely true because I like the first one,
Yeah,
but
the first one's pretty good.
there has not been a single good live action Fantastic Four movie. And don't come to me and be like, "Oh, but the 2004 Fantastic Four movie with Chris Evans and that one was good." It's like, "No, that one was not good. If you're probably just blinded by nostalgia or it's a guilty
I
pleasure of
disagree.
yours."
It is good. And I don't have nostalgia for it. It is good.
Well, to each their own, but I don't think that's a good movie. And then Rise of the Silver Surfer was a disappointing sequel. So if not even Marvel's, and then Fant Four Stick needs no introduction. So if not even Marvel Studios can get the Fantastic Four right, then nobody can.
I will say, just to throw my 2 cents out there, I mean, I enjoy the other 2000s Fantastic Four movies, but like, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say that they're good movies, but they're entertaining movies, I would say at the very least. Fan Four Stick from 2015, I believe. I mean, not great, but honestly, I think it's like one of those where it's like you can see the vision, and it's like, man, if we had gotten that movie, that this would actually be pretty good. But like the third act is just a black hole that just sucks everything in and just makes it all suck. Anyway, my other two most highly anticipated movies of the year. I don't really know anything about what they're going to do with the movie. I don't know if they've shot it yet. I don't know if it's actually coming out this year, but I think it is The Backrooms, directed by Kane Parsons. It's an A24 adaptation of like the viral found footage, like Backrooms stuff. That could be a really cool movie. I don't know anything about it. I don't know if they've shot it yet or anything, like I said, but just the idea, full length feature, I'm here for it. I think it could be really good. Please don't screw up the freaking release, A24. Good lord. Moving on. And my last one, this is kind of a tough choice. There's a number of movies that I'm looking forward to next year, or this year, I mean. I would say I'm looking forward to 28 Years Later. The trailer, if you haven't seen it yet, masterclass. Such a good trailer. Definitely check it out, even if you're like not, you don't know. Just watch it. It's really, really good. Very intrigued to see what they do with this, and it's cool that they're going for kind of like a lo-fi thing again. Like they shot it with an iPhone. Granted, it was an iPhone with probably like thousands or tens of thousands of dollars at the very bare minimum in terms of like extra add-on tech, but it's still an iPhone technically, so still kind of cool. But yeah, just very intrigued to see what they're gonna do, and it's the first part of a brand new trilogy, and the next part is directed by Nia DaCosta, who I also like. So hopefully, it will end up being really good. But what about you, Miranda? What are your top 3 to 5 most highly anticipated movies of this year? I guess.
For 2025, some of the movies on my list are similar to your guys' Superman. I'm not the biggest DC fan out there, but I do enjoy the classic Superman with Christopher Reeves, I believe. I really did enjoy that. Superman in this new one seems to kind of call back to that, and I did watch the teaser trailer and I was like, Clark looks like a dork. I'm here for it. Get Henry Cavill out of here. He's too not a dork. So I'm looking forward to Superman. Mickey 17, I saw the trailer for. I thought that was really interesting. Sci-fi movie, clones, Robert Pattinson. You know, probably pretty good movie. So that one looked really interesting. And then Jurassic World Rebirth, I mean, it's a Jurassic Park movie, so it can either be really good or it could be really bad, but I do enjoy the Jurassic Park series. I've been trying to read the book for like a year now. It's such a good book. I've read it before, but like maybe I'll try to read it before this new one comes out, although I'm sure the new one won't have any references to the original source material, which is probably fine. And then, yeah, I guess my last one is Five Nights at Freddy's 2. I really enjoyed FNAF 1. I thought it was fun, and I just know a lot of FNAF lore via osmosis. And I don't know if like Josh Hutcherson is coming back or Matthew Lillard is coming back, but I believe the Creature Shop, Jim Henson's Creature Shop, is back to make the animatronics. So, I'm excited to see what they do with it. I mean, it could be bad, it could be good. Who knows? But I just liked the style of the first one. So, looking forward to the second one. So that is our highly anticipated films of 2025, and that is our overall discussion of our favorite pieces of media from 2024. I hope you all enjoyed it. I would like to transition over to share some interesting facts with you guys and the listeners. Similar to our last end of the year special, I'm just going to run through these real quick. We had 29 episodes this year with 35 movies covered. We had 8 now playing episodes, 4 holiday specials, 3 kaiju corners, and 4 our favorite episodes. We have a total of 561 all-time downloads, which is pretty neat. Last year around this time we had about 350. Around this time last year we had about 26 subscribers on our YouTube channel, and now we have 69 subscribers.
Nice.
Yes, I knew one of you were going to make
Sorry,
that
I
joke.
had to. I had to,
That was
man.
literally instant.
Yeah, no second thought,
I
just
had
bam.
to.
Yeah, so we're looking for more subscribers.
When we hit
So
420,
please,
we can do the same thing.
yeah. I mean, we would love for more people to share the podcast, so share it with your friends, families, your neighbors, the person you sit next to on the bus, anyone. We just would love to build a little community of Godzilla and movie lovers. And then our top episodes this year were Godzilla X Kong: A New Empire, and May we had our most listeners, which is pretty cool. So that's our little data facts. Before closing out the show, we want to give a thanks to everyone who listens to our podcast over the last year and our previous year, to all of our guest hosts that came onto the podcast to talk about movies that they love, and then to anyone who shared our episodes. We really appreciate it, and of course, shout out to our friends and families who support us in this endeavor and listen to all of our conversations in the more logistical sense of like, oh, we gotta schedule this, so what movie are you watching now? It's just nice to have conversations with our friends and family about the podcast, and of course, I love having a conversation about movies and media with both of you guys. It's a really fun experience. It really just means a lot, and we appreciate everyone who listens and supports us in this endeavor. Thank you so much for joining us and listening to our end of the year conversation. If you're interested in hearing more, check out our previous episodes, and as always, you can find us on Instagram at Atomic Lizard Pod and on Letterboxd at Atomic_Lizard.